The art of rising. We're all about rising your mental status, your spirit, your energy, your finances, and everything else in between. I'm always on the search for a great guest, and I found another one here. So his bio is quite diverse, and he's working with leadership and coaching people in that area, and he has his own podcast as well. Super successful. So before we get into that, I did want to mention that we're having an event on June 28th. It is the Purple Sage Festival. So if you stick around to the end of the podcast, we're going to help you out with that ticket. So stick around. All right. There you go. All right, brother. Introduce yourself. Tell us where you're living and what are you doing with yourself these days?
Thank you very much, Omar. My name is Gary Gillan. I am a coach, as you mentioned there. I live in Calgary in Alberta in Canada. Originally from a place called Paisley in Scotland, just next to Glasgow in west central Scotland. Been in Canada for just over 20 years now and fulfilled a bit of a lifelong ambition to move to Calgary. I had that from a very young age. And I coach. I teach, I speak, I do business consulting. You know what it's like as an entrepreneur. You have many strings to your bow, and I just love it. I genuinely just love helping people get out of their own way. Quite frankly, a lot of times there are external barriers that are put in people's way, and I appreciate that more than most. But a lot of times we don't do ourselves any favors in the process of trying to move forward, and we can kind of stop ourselves in our tracks. So my inspiration is to try and help people get and gain as much clarity and awareness of that and figure out what works best for them to move forward with intention, with purpose, and to get those blockers and barriers out of their way.
I love it. I love that. I love it. I love it. And many strings to their bow. That's beautiful. I love that, bro. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Scotland, growing up there and in the family situations and some of the things that go on, because we all carry a bag of bricks, right? So,
Yeah.
And our job is like to try to offset it. So yeah, if you can tell us.
Yeah, definitely. I as I say, I grew up in a place called Paisley, and I honestly, Omar, I loved it there. I had a great life. I had a happy upbringing. I'm the last of 8 in my family, of a blended family. So I'm the baby, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I kind of got treated like the golden child as well, by everyone, by my siblings, most of my siblings, and by my parents too. And I got to a spot where I enjoyed life. I had an ambition when I was younger, and I don't really know where it came from. I think literally it came from the need for money. And my ambition when I was younger was to get a paper round, to go deliver papers for money. And I was like literally desperate. When you want something so bad that everything you do in life leads towards that. And so there was a paper shop that there was a couple of guys a few years older than me in my school worked at, and I admired them. They were the kind of cool guys, and I had an opportunity to try and figure out how best to get into the shop and see what the interview process looks like, how I would get hired on and eventually get the job. And you had to be 13. So at the time when I started this, I was like 10, 11 years old. And I kind of muscled away, and I ended up doing a Saturday afternoon shift, delivering a couple of papers, kind of under the table sort of thing for some of the older guys that didn't want to do anything on a Saturday afternoon. So I'm running around on my bike delivering these afternoon papers. And it really got me to thinking in my latter years, why was I so driven to be doing that? And I think, quite honestly, there was an absolute inconsistency in terms of attitudes to money in my household. My parents, who are both gone now, who I absolutely love dearly and think about them every single day, they, one day I would say, can I get 10 pence to go to the shop and buy some sweets? And they would say, of course you can. So in fact, here, take 20, go have some fun, go out with your friends. And then of another day I would ask, and I would get my head bitten off because they're going through something as an adult, and they decide, like, this is the stupidest question they've ever been asked because I have no idea how difficult it is to come across money. So it was quite humiliating, quite embarrassing at the time. And I thought, well, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. I can't put up with this inconsistency from these basket cases that I live with, who are wonderful on one occasion and then absolutely demented on the next occasion. I think that was my inspiration, truly. And I've only started talking about this recently. And, you know, to that point of saying, I'd much rather have my own money and have control over, have autonomy over my own finances, and I don't have to ask anyone for anything. So remember, this is like 10, 11 years old. You know, that's a long, decades ago. And I don't really think that's ever left me, quite honestly. So I did that paper round morning, afternoon, 364 days a year. Christmas Day, we got off every other day. I worked it morning, afternoon on Monday to Friday, and then just mornings on the weekend. And I never missed a day. Because it was such a good grounding for me to say, if I don't go and deliver the papers, I don't get paid. And I really want to get paid because I want to go and watch my favourite team, you know, Rangers, and I want to buy some nice clothes that my parents wouldn't be in a position to buy for me. So that was my real grounding in terms of work ethic, to say, I don't work, I don't get paid. I'm very fortunate that I was healthy. Many a day I didn't want to go, but I just had to go. I left school at 16. In the UK, it's different than it is in North America. You don't graduate at 18. In fact, you don't graduate. You just kind of leave. you just walk out the door of the school. And when I was leaving school, I'll tell you a funny story. When I was leaving school at the time was not my jam. I didn't enjoy it. It was pointless. You know, why would I want to learn about history? I'm more educated now. History teaches us a lot of things that we can use in life, but I just didn't get it. I thought it was nonsense. And I was leaving, and I had to go and get my teachers, each of my teachers, to sign a form to say Gary can leave. He's basically doesn't have any materials that belong to the school. So I went to the library, and I honestly don't think that I was ever in the library. Like literally, maybe we went in to watch a movie one day or something. I'm not sure. And then the teacher, Mr. Duff, I remember his name, and he says, I can't sign that form because you've got 2 books belonging to the school. So I kind of laughed. I said, are you sure, man? Because I don't know that I've ever been in here, and I certainly don't ever recall taking any books out. He says, I can't sign it. Okay. So then I went to the vice principal, the assistant headmaster, as we call them back home, and I said, listen, Mr. Duff isn't signing this. And he was as keen for me to leave as I was to leave. So the assistant headmaster basically says, give me the form, signed it. He says, beat it. Don't ever come back here ever again. So I left, and you know, that was a positive transaction as far as I was concerned. And I became a painter. And the reason I became a painter was you needed no qualifications from school to become a painter, like a house painter. That's what I was doing. And I did an apprenticeship in that because there was painters in my school, and I'd said to them, how would I get an apprenticeship? And they said, call this guy. Called the guy, got an interview, and I got the apprenticeship. Within about 2 weeks, honestly, I had one of those aha moments, or quite frankly, an oh no moment, where I thought, what have I done? What have I done? I was seeing these guys older than me, and it was all guys, older than me, you know, basically doing all the dodges, kind of miserable, have a career path that wasn't serving them. And I thought, I've painted myself into this corner, you know, one.
Literally.
Yeah, to a point where I don't have many other options. I don't have many other avenues to take. So I finished the apprenticeship, but one of the saving graces of my life was that there was schooling as part of this apprenticeship. And as part of the schooling, I was quite interested in it. You know, I love the ability to see something and then do something with it, and it looks nice and it looks different at the other side, you know. And I think that was my initial experience in project management. And the schooling, I started to, when I was interested in the topic, I done quite well. So then, as part of my schooling, I got Apprentice of the Year 2 years in a row. I won some awards. I got an opportunity to do further schooling, and I did really, really well at that, which then guided me into my future construction schooling, and then ultimately my degrees and such. I got an opportunity to finish my apprenticeship after 4 years and move over to supervising, and basically I never went back on the tools after that. And from then it was project management and such. Moved to Canada, did some academic work for a while, moved to Canada, and then followed a similar path. Really took the project management work seriously, got an opportunity to work in kind of corporate Canada for quite some time. And then I got to a point where I was, like not having a life moment where I'm negatively questioning my choices, but just saying, is this where I want to be? Truly, is this where I want to be? And if yes, great. If not, why not? And what am I going to do about it? And then I do a whole bunch of things that gets me the opportunity to come and talk to you today.
Wow. Incredible, man. And was that there in Scotland when you decided that? Because you were in the corporate world in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you started getting these like, hey, wait, something's not. I think of Ram Dass, right? He said life is like that. Like, they give you a suit and then it doesn't fit after a while. Then you're like, you take it off, you put another suit, the one you think you like.
Yeah.
Right. And then after a while, you're like, it's not fitting right. Yeah. So
yeah, exactly that. I think more. I mean, mine is a bit of a cliche story, and in terms of it was a COVID story, and I was out running one day, and I had an intention. Like when I run, sometimes I'll just say I'm going to actually think about this thing when I'm out, and I'll see if anything comes to me. And other times I just go out there just to blanket run and see if anything happens. And this particular day, I thought I'm going to have a think about my career. Literally, I'm going to just see how I feel about it. And I was out, and I know literally where it happened. It's not far from my house. And I thought, what do I like about my job, my project management job? Is it project management as a discipline? Now, I write, teach, speak about project management a lot. I've been in project management for over 30 years. It's served me very, very well in my career. Is it project management that I'm really jazzed about? Nah, not really. Okay, so is it the industries? I've been in so many different industries. I've been so fortunate that what I call my project management tool belt gives me an opportunity to manage in retail, in IT, in construction, in academic land, in utilities, in oil and gas. And so is it the industries that I've been in that have been that draw, that pull, that fascination? Nah, not really. So what is it then? And this is the cliche part for me, is the people. And then, okay, so what about the people is it? And then it came to me where I thought, I love the ability to help people get out of their own way, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah. And the most fascinating things for me was putting the puzzles of people together to say, and it was from a very selfish perspective in the beginning, because I'm managing projects and I'm saying, you're materially getting in the way of this project. Now, I can come in with a sledgehammer and I can bash you all over the head with it and make you comply and conform. Or I can come in and actually try and find out why you're acting and behaving the way that you're acting and behaving. So that's the path I chose. Tell me what you were thinking when you blew up that meeting there. I just want to understand what you were trying to do, and then we can have a conversation. And you get a bit of bravado because there's not a lot of trust there, or you haven't developed enough of a relationship at a deep level. And then eventually it's like, well, what you don't understand, Gary, is we always get overlooked. People always forget about us. We never get what we need. We always ask. We're always at the table. Whatever that looks like. Right, okay. So then that manifested itself into that. Well, I'm just trying to fight my corner. Okay. Do you think there's another way that we could maybe do that to get you what you need? Because I hear you. I see you, and I want to help you. Is there another way to do that? And then all of a sudden you've got a person on side because they know you're an ally, you're not an enemy. And that's what I started to do. So latterly, before I left my last job to do full-time coaching, I would basically get people saying, I need you to speak to this particular person. Okay, what's going on? You can figure it out when you get there, but could you just go and have a conversation with him or her and do that thing that you do? What's that thing that I do? I actually don't know what you do, but could you go do that? And then just kind of make sure that she's all right, or he's doing fine, or he's not getting in the way. So then it was that opportunity to speak to people, to help them see that things aren't quite as dire or grave as they thought they were. There's a different way to go about things. As you mentioned earlier, the bag of bricks that we're carrying around with us. I've seen that so many times. Like literally, you could see people almost hunched over, walking the hallways with all these burdens of just a job. I know that jobs are important, careers are very important and such, but to have the material negative effect that I noticed it had on people it made me sad, quite honestly. And that was a real genuine inspiration for me to say, I have to do something about this.
So that was it. That was part of it. Like, the series of events leading up to like, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong here. This environment, that was similar for me too. I was just recently in a job, and the universe or myself created this scenario, right? We blame it on the universe usually, or the devil. It was the devil. Yeah, it was you, man, right?
Yeah.
So there I was, like, I just couldn't stomach it anymore. Like, just the environment, like, I enjoy what I was doing. I was doing IT, and I had one of those jobs. It was my career, and it was one of those jobs where it paid really well, man, and the great benefits and the culture and those type of thing, and all kinds of opportunities to raise up too. But I just couldn't stomach the environment anymore. And plus, I also knew that my calling was somewhere else, just like yourself too. It was here. God was telling me it's over here. Like, you can stay there if you want. Like, we have free will. Many scriptures speak about that. Humans could do whatever we want. Me and you, we could rob a bank right now. Nothing, we might get caught. Yeah, I know, but nothing will stop us from doing those things. So it was just came to a boiling point. It was just too much for me, and I wanted to help people. That's it. I'm in the, I really feel that humans are here to help one another.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I don't know your certain circumstance or situation, Omar, but mine, the reason that I was so blessed was that my calling came with complete clarity. There was no pressure. There was no, conflict or duress that I was under where I thought, oh my, I need to go do something else before I throttle someone or anything. It was just, I'm going to do this because, one, I'm good at it. Two, I've already seen the results and impact that I can create. And three, I absolutely love it. I love it. I liked project management, and it was great to like it. I love doing the journey work that I do with people and myself. And I'm very fortunate and very blessed because not a lot of people get to see that.
Yeah, for me too. I just felt myself, naturally, the clock is ticking. So you kind of see it, you see it in the mirror. You're like, oh my God, I look like my daddy, but including my old man too. Like, he was about 80 years old, and he was still working at a job doing some social work. And he was ill at the time, and it was the cancer in his liver, and it just wasn't looking good in that area. But he was still on the phone telling them, hey, I'll be right there, and I'm just waiting for the doctors to and that was just so heart-wrenching. It's even hard for me to speak about these things because it's so deeply impact seeing that, and in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going out like that. So many times he had told me that he didn't want to do that no more. He didn't like it. But for me, I know what I like, just like yourself. Like, I know what I love. I know my calling, so for me too, it was just a series of events that just led up to that. And then I was influenced too by other things, such as books too. I was doing quite a bit of reading, and your story reminds me of, how to win and influence, how to win friends and influence people by Dale Carnegie. It's just that speaking with people, like you like helping, and all of that you were saying, like just get out of your own way. Let's
Yeah.
look at it a different way here. That's all we got to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a brilliant book as well. It's one of these things. The interesting thing for me is that, and I can sense it in you as well, it's very clear. Things are very clear. Now the work can be difficult to do and
unclear too.
Yeah, for sure. You don't know exactly what path you're going to take, but it's clear that there are better ways for people to live and enjoy life and embrace life and contribute, and give back and create impact. And then one of the challenges that I have now, and possibly you have too, is there's not everyone interested in that. People are kind of like, enough of that. I don't even need to talk about that right now. I'm just about barely holding everything together right now. Leave me alone and then go and help someone else. And I think that breaks my heart. It really does, because I'm thinking, if you don't invest in yourself, at some point you might fall on your side, and it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get back up. But when people aren't built that way, when they don't know that there's another path, when they think all right is okay, and they don't want to tap into the higher levels, a little bit heartbreaking for me. And I would love that opportunity to just say, give it a try. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to learn something about yourself, and you're going to be a better human and individual as
right. Gary, when this word started coming out about like life coach and leadership coach, I'm like, man, I don't need none of that. Why would I need that? But then I started doing some projects and things. I'm like, hey, I need help over here, man. I wish somebody would help me. So you talked about painting and creating those things, and you would think like Michelangelo or Picasso or any of those guys, somebody taught them, right? You would think like, oh, they're just genius, and they just got right to it. And Rembrandt, it was natural. That's not true. That's not true. No, they were also under someone and submitting to that and allowing the process to say, hey, I need help. You seem to be doing what is it that I want to do.
Yeah.
Let me watch you. And then when you talk about the monetary sacrifice that people would have to make, some people think like, oh, I can't afford that. How they should think is like, how can I not afford that?
Exactly.
What do I need to do in order to give this to this individual so they can help me?
Yeah.
It seems like you're doing that.
Yeah, and it works with some people and it doesn't work with others. I tell this story now. A good friend of mine was asking about the coaching in the beginning, and we have a relationship that's always very fun. We're always poking fun at each other, and the more we get to razz each other, it's kind of great. And he was asking, how much does it cost per hour? And I says, well, like if you're concentrating on the money straight off the bat without even asking about the process, about the benefits, about how it's actually going to help overall, that's not the type of conversation. No. Just tell me how much. And if I had said $1 per hour, he would have come back saying, you're a highway robber. That's what he already had the line set up for that, Then I told him, and he says, you're a highway robber. He actually said something a bit less polite than that, to be honest. And I said, okay, man, right, I understand. How much, and it was wintertime, how much was your jacket? Like $200. Okay, how much was that t-shirt? This was about $70, whatever. What were the jeans? $120. What were the shoes? $210. Okay, so that's, say, combined, I don't know what the number was, but say combined $600 for the stuff. So you're willing to spend it on yourself, but you're not willing to spend it in yourself. How does that help you going forward? And he's like, hey, none of that mumbo jumbo, and he's never been a client. He's never wanted to move on.
Right, yeah.
Well, I hope I struck a chord of some reflection to say we can all invest on this. This is the easy part. But that separates them.
That's the deep work, and I love that analogy about the clothes, because clothes is something that you bought that shirt that you're wearing now, but you don't wear it every day, do you? But something that is for the inside, for the mental, for the temple, right? Because there's the temple right here. Something for your temple you use that every single day.
Yeah.
In all scenarios,
Yeah.
all relationships, wherever you are, corporate world or personal projects or any relationships, anything,
Yeah.
you know.
100%.
So how do you help people navigate through tough situations, like decisions and when they're under pressure in leadership roles? They come to you and say, man, help me out with this. Okay, I'm ready. Let's go. What do you do?
It's really, I start with some scenario planning or some scenario exercises, I should say, where I say, right, tell me what you're struggling with. And invariably, it becomes another person. Just, I need you to give me the tools to shut him up and make sure that he doesn't do what he's doing or what she's, and I'm kind of like, forget about them for a second. Tell me the latest experience that you had that gave you the inspiration or the motivation to come and talk to me. Okay, so tell me about another occasion. Tell me about another occasion. So we gather 2 or 3 different scenarios, and there are common threads. There are patterns within that because there are common elements, one being the client that's standing in front of me. So then, okay, how did you act and react in the circumstance and situation? With the benefit of hindsight, how could you have done that differently and better going forward? And the more we start digging, the problem that they come to me, not 100%, but a very, very high percentage, the problem they come to me to help them fix or in some way address isn't really the problem. It's not. It's a manifestation of the root cause of the actual genuine problem. It's a symptom of something else. So we start to, and it's subtle. I'll tell them the coaching that I do is kind of energy coaching, energy levels, and it's all built on anabolic and catabolic energy. And I don't get super scientific that kind of gets people saying, whoa, that's too out there for me. But it's within me. So I get that opportunity to start to really genuinely delve into saying, what is it that's going on? What is your role in this? What do you want your role to be in this? What's the gap between what you want and what you're actually doing? And how do we actually start to build that gap? And one of the key elements of it is truly saying and helping them believe this is not about you. The scenario that came up is not about you. The person's actions or reactions towards you is not about you. And I get a lot of pushback. They're saying, whoa, wait a minute. Did you listen to what I was saying? She blatantly went out of her way to inconvenience me, to pull that funding, to take that resource away, to whatever it looks like. And I'm saying, I understand, completely understand. It's still not about you. Can you imagine how much pain that other person's in, that they're taking all that time and effort and energy to do all these things, to push some sort of grief, hassle, devastation, destruction to someone else rather than hold on to it for themselves? And what we really do is get to the human element, is get to the point of saying, what do I control? What do I genuinely control? I control me, and I'm willing. And even then, it's very difficult at times. So when you're trying to control another party or have another party behave in a certain way or believe in a certain thing or whatever it is you're trying to do, you're on a hiding to nothing. It's not going to come to anything. You need to just concentrate on yourself, your actions, your reactions, and then figure out a path and a plan to take those actions and reactions that don't serve you and minimize them to such a point that they become consequential. And you're taking these bricks out the bag, Omar, and you're saying, I'm going to pass this brick back to this person. I'm going to leave this pile of bricks on the desk here. Someone else can pick them up, and I'm going to carry my own bricks, and that's it. And it becomes a process of doing it. It's different for every client, depending on what type and style of challenges root cause, and then starting to build back up from the actual genuine human element, understanding that nothing else matters other than who you are, what you're doing, and what you want.
I always bring up the "As a Man Thinketh" by James Allen. It's just our thoughts that it seems like what you're saying. Also, it's that intersection of emotional intelligence, coming together with that project that you just want to accomplish and the best outcome for everyone involved.
Yeah. 100%. And the best outcome might not be what they think it is. As I say, in the beginning, they're saying, I need you to shut them down. I need you to help me, zip it for like whatever it looks like. Forget about them for a second. Let's talk about you. And then ultimately, when you get deeper, it becomes, I'm sick of being overlooked. I'm sick of being undervalued. I don't appreciate, not being seen, right? Okay, what does that mean for you? What can we do to help you start to manifest that, and then put the building blocks in place to give them the best opportunity to get the best
or maybe he looks like her ex-husband or something. Like, let's get to the root of it, man.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Yeah. Why don't you tell me about some success stories that have come out of some of the things that you've been doing in concerns to leadership, coaching and guiding?
Some of the success stories have come when, I've had clients that are looking for a new job, and we've worked together to give them an opportunity to not just find a new job, but to get a job that actually makes them want to jump out of bed in the morning and such, so that they're kind of more transactional in terms of, I want to be able to accomplish this thing, and we work together to get them to accomplish that thing. But most of the success stories have come from, if I could use the bricks analogy again, of having people saying, I'm carrying all of these bricks right now, and I didn't even know, like, I kind of knew that some of them were maybe not mine to carry, but I'm okay carrying them because I want to be a people pleaser. And then I say, being a people pleaser doesn't mean you're actually helping. Like, you appreciate that, don't you? Just because you want to please people and you choose that path, you're not always automatically helping them, or you, of course, not you. So the success stories have been the clarity that people have gained through working with me, on the basics of, I only control what I can control. I appreciate, they're even using the language, I appreciate this is a limiting belief. I see this in other people. I want to help other people understand that the assumptions they're making are unfounded, that the voices in their head aren't serving them in a certain way. So some of the success stories are people just gaining more clarity. And you know what it's like? It's not that. It's not instantaneous.
No.
It's over time. And then you see someone in the future and you're like, wow, you're a butterfly now. You are a caterpillar. And they're kind of like, I know. And the whole thing is that anytime I'll get either a person or a family member of a person that I've been coaching that comes and says, what did you do? I can't believe what's happening. I say, just asked him some questions and he came up with all the answers. Right. Something else to it. And I'm saying, maybe there is, but it's all about willingness to work, willingness to put in the genuine effort. I've seen clients being stuck in such a kind of devastating, destructive family situation, and they've managed to get out of that without burning bridges, without burning the house down. They've managed to say, this is not a path I'm going to choose anymore. I'm going to choose something different, but I still love you. I still want to be part of this family community, this family unit. I just have to choose my own path. And that is incredible bravery, incredible insight. But then when the actual transaction took place of that opportunity to break away, it was a family business, that opportunity to break away, it was quite an easy conversation to have, because all the work that happened, that clarity came, and they said, I'm not expecting you to understand this. I'm going to explain what it looks like and what growth we get to see in people. So I'm not one of those guys that says, turn $1,000 into $100,000 and right. Or anything like that. If you want to genuinely get better at something you care about, come and talk to me. We have a conversation and I'll see if I can help you. And if I can't, should I know someone who can?
Right. I believe I shared with you before about the deep work that we do with men. We're having a men's retreat coming up now. It's coming this Friday, Saturday. So it's a weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, and it's a little long, and it gives time for guys to unplug, But I usually tell them, like, if you're looking for the 6-minute abs or or 5 steps to make 100K. Like that's somewhere else. That's the following week's retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this one is the deep work. And a lot of guys don't want to do that. They don't want to go into that thing like you speak about, hey, leave me alone. I'm barely holding on to this. But the analogy I usually make is if I tell you about an orange and how sweet it is and how juicy and how satisfying it is, and unless you let go of that brick that you're holding, there goes the brick again, right? Unless you drop that brick and let it go, that could put the orange, that you can open it and bite into it, then you can see how sweet it is. And if I've had a nickel for every time I've had somebody tell me, Omar, you changed my life. Thank you so much. I can't thank you.
Yeah.
And we usually tell them, Gary, that we're just like ushers in the movie. We're just trying to show you your chair to get to your seat without knocking somebody's popcorn over. Why? Because the movie's yours. It's your movie. Like, we're just trying to help you. It seems like that's what you're doing.
100%. Do you know what I actually did not long before we started recording? I was out on my run this morning talking about getting clarity when I'm running. And I was thinking about coaching and thinking about when it does and doesn't work. And there could be arguments for both. Like if you do coaching and you think that didn't really work, so why? What were you expecting? What process did you follow? What work did you actually do? And what were the outputs, and did that serve you? It could be just incongruence with the coach. It could be you just weren't quite as invested at the time. You were actually working on the wrong things. There's a whole variety of things that could happen. But I was starting to think about when coaching doesn't work, is it a guarantee that coaching is going to work? No, of course there's not. And if you think about that from a sporting perspective, if coaching worked 100% of the time, if you were very, very competent at it, then everybody would win every single time.
Right.
But that's not the way it works. Nobody gets to win all the time. There's only one person or group or team that gets to win all the time. So then, is the sporting coach, like in the match, in the game, the sporting coach has got his team or her team, and the team is out doing something, and something happens that they weren't expecting, an injury, a couple of goals or points or whatever it looks like, some tactical move by the opposition. So the coach goes, right, okay, I think I know what's best. Let's try this. Let's change the formation. Let's move this back. Let's do this over there. Let's do that. And then they're going to analyze it again and say, is that working? Actually, that's not working either. So let's tweak it again. Let's tweak it again. Let's tweak it again. And sometimes at the end of the game, people will say, genius. Coach, you did a great job. Or at the end, they'll say, you are literally the dumbest coach I've ever seen. Everyone can see that was stupid. Well, my view, my lens, my prescription for that particular thing was, this is what I seen. This is what I tried to do to combat it. And obviously it didn't work. I now have information that I didn't have before, and I would make a different decision next time. You never hear coaches saying any of that.
Right.
Because they're in the moment and they're trying to do it. Our type of coaching, our type of support, not too dissimilar. Someone comes with a problem, as I mentioned earlier. Is that the actual problem? And I'm not saying in the beginning it's not. I'm saying tell me more information and we'll see if we can actually figure out whether it is or not. And then once we get to that point, what have you done about this? I haven't really done too much about it. Okay, well, let's try these things. And then it becomes an investment. If someone says, the age-old question that I get at times is they kind of vomit out, this is what I need to fix. This is what I need to fix. Can you help me fix that? How long is it going to take? And I say, how long did it take you to get to this situation? And they're like, what? 50 years. And I'm like, okay, so this is not a 1 hour session that's going to take 50 years. Is it going to take me 50 years? It's not going to take you 50 years. But it's one of these things. So the coaching sphere and philosophy is a genuine partnership. It's a genuine opportunity to say, I'm going to give my all, and I expect the same from you, and we will see where it takes us. There are absolutely no guarantees that things are going to go the way that you want them to go because of external factors and forces and things that we don't even know yet. But trust in the process, trust in your ability to try things and course correct when they don't work or
Mm.
don't work right now, and
Mm.
then move forward, but continue to catalog everything
Mm.
that you're doing, to have those measurements, to say,
Mm.
you know what, I tried that thing in the early part of my journey and I wasn't
Right.
really sure what it was. I wasn't truly committed.
Mm.
Try that again. Of
Right.
course we can. I now feel like I'm in a better spot and place, and
Mm.
it's so aware of everything that's going on
Mhm.
around you, and you have so much information and
Mm.
so many more tools at your disposal that you can
Mhm.
sit down, and if you take that time to be super selfish and think
Right.
about yourself and what's best for you, you get an
Mhm.
opportunity to move on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've noticed that we don't live in a cave, right? We live in an environment where there's lots of things. So when you think of someone like Picasso, I think he painted something like 1,500, 2,000 paintings, like some ridiculous number, but he's only famous for like five or something like that, right?
Yeah,
You see? So you don't know what process he had to go through, who he spoke to, who helped him, who guided him a bit and said, hey, how about this? What's bothering you about that? "Ah, I just can't, yeah, but let's talk about it a little bit more. We never hear about that guy.
yeah,
We only hear about the guy. Oh, he's a great coach.
yeah,
Oh, he's a genius. Ah, look at that. He bring him to the Super Bowl and all that. Yeah. It's a
yeah.
process, man.
Yeah, 100%. And even the most successful coaches in the world, they won, say, 20 trophies in their career.
Mm.
Okay, how many trophies did you compete for?
Mm.
That's an odd question. But I'm just asking. Well, I guess
Mhm.
technically it was 400 or 300, 200, whatever it is. Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
you were successful in,
Mm.
11% of those pursuits. Does
Right.
that mean you were unsuccessful in 89%?
Mhm.
And there's
Mhm.
ways to spin things. I'm not trying to poo-poo anybody's stellar
Mhm.
careers and such, but it's
Mhm.
almost compounding what I was saying earlier,
Mhm.
that if there was an absolute genuine magic formula, guaranteed everyone would be winning.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. It's just not like that. No, it doesn't. It takes time. And, especially when you're trying to help someone,
yeah,
right? Because I started learning that, hey, I'm a leader. What's the definition of a leader? That's me, actually. I'm getting up and I'm doing something. I'm not telling people, "Oh, go do that." And that's part of it too. But people usually don't follow you when you don't get up and do it,
yeah.
right? So why don't you tell me, what is your definition or your authentic, conclusion about leadership? You know?
It's such a great question. You actually used the main word that I would use in my answer, which is authentic.
Mhm.
It's trying to figure out what works for you, and it can be different at different moments in different environments. You could be a leader at home, and that's different than being a leader in the workplace, and being
Mhm.
different than being a leader in the community and
Mhm.
such. But it's being genuinely authentic to yourself and being intentional. And
Mhm.
one of the things that resonated with me that you mentioned earlier, in terms of even the most revered geniuses of our artists in the world, were beginners at some point. They were the apprentice. They were the person shuffling around behind the person that was doing it for real and trying to pick up those things. And the reason I mention that again is that I think that's absolutely key, to be completely, aware and intentionally observant when you're walking through, to say,
Mm.
why did she do that in that moment? What was the intention? How did she deliver it? How was it
Mhm.
received? How
Mhm.
would that manifest itself if I were to try something like that, that's more congruent with me
Mhm.
as a leader? So it's not copying per se, but it's being inspired by other people. And the reason that I think that's important is you
Mhm.
get that opportunity to be more open to the fact that you don't know everything in the moment.
Mhm.
So, yes, I completely agree that you need to be doing the work. You need to be able to prove to people, listen, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be literally the
Mhm.
one doing the work. I'll be the one that gives you a pat on the back or a kick up the backside if you do or don't do the work that needs to be done. But it will all be done with love and with the intention of ongoing support. But
Mhm.
just know, every single day I am on the lookout for better ways to do things.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
development, self-development, educational growth, spiritual growth, everything, every single day, because there is so much information around us all day, every day. So if I'm leading the same today as I was 5 years ago, something's happened. That's notwithstanding technology and advancements and the world of business and such like that. But if I'm doing something today that's exactly the same, either it works incredibly well or I just haven't sharpened that tool just yet.
Exactly.
So being really conscious of consistently trying to get better, looking at the results that I'm getting, being very authentic with myself, being saying, I don't know. What do you think? And they're like, what do you think? Like, you're the leader, you're supposed to know. I understand why you would say that. I really do. I don't know. So what do you want to do? Do you want to continue to debate this, or do you want to try and start to move forward?
Right.
With purpose and with integrity. I'm part of a volunteer organization that in North America that's a supporters association for my team from back home in Glasgow. And we're called Glasgow Rangers, and the group is called the North American Rangers Supporters Association. And I've been the president. It's supposed to be a 2-year term, and I've been the president since 2018, and it's now 2025, and it's 7 years and such. And I'm thinking, wait a second, and we're having our AGM in June, and I may be the president again. And I'm thinking, what was this? That was not the plan. My plan was to come in, run my leg of the race. It's a little bit better, pass the baton off the and then support from the sidelines. But when I look at the way that I led back in the day, actually the very first time I became president was 2014, and then I took the past president role for a time and then came back. But when I look at the way that I led in the beginning, it was all very transactional. I need to do this thing, then that thing, then that thing. And that's the way the business was structured. That's the way the association is structured. And now it's more, I'm doing way more work than I would hope to do after having been in the role for so long. But I think I fashioned some of that on my own inadvertently. But now it is more about, why are we doing this? What's the point of this exercise? What are we trying to affect in terms of meaningful change as we go forward? What is it we're trying to do? I'm not above the fact that certain things have a shelf life. If we don't need to do that anymore, I'm not one of these, it's what we've always done, so let's just keep going. If there's a better way to do that, which includes shutting this part of what we do down, let's do it with intention, with purpose, and with grace. And let's move on from there. So it's being open, being authentic, constantly questioning, constantly growing, and thinking as we move forward. I think that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, I've been studying about that growth, because we're all about mindset and uplifting, rising is the art of rising. Yeah. And our mind always goes back to that default mode network. Like, this is what we always did all the time, and it's safe, so I'm just going to continue like that. But what we do here, as you may know, we do breath work with an ice plunge. The breath prepares you for the ice, but the breath work alone, like, that just clears that mental part. The frontal lobe. It's the safety security system. Oh, don't start that podcast. Be careful. The sharks out there, they might not like you, So it kind of quiets that part of it.
Yeah.
And then with the ice plunge, which we had one yesterday at an establishment in another city, Brooklyn, it was phenomenal, Gary, phenomenal. But it's that 2 minutes in the ice, man. It just clears so many things up. It's a tough thing. It's tough. But do you do some of those ice plunges as well? I know we spoke last time.
Every day. That's what I do. I have one of these portable ones that's now in my garage. So in Calgary here, it gets very, very cold in the winter. So I don't have much inspiration to go out into the garage in the wintertime. So from November to the end of April, I literally fill my bath in my ensuite, and the mains water that comes from Maine, the main water source, is freezing. So in the beginning, it's like going into a mountain stream. Truly, it's painfully sore.
Brutal, right?
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And then, but you get that opportunity to continue. If on the odd occasion, if I skip it for a day, I don't really notice much. If I skip it for a couple of days, I start to feel some physical aches and pains, which then affects my mental memory. So now I have it, it's back in the garage now. And after every workout or in the morning, first thing, I go in, I do 3 minutes in it, and I sit there. Sometimes I listen to a podcast. Recently, I've been in a bit of a silent phase where I just want to hear myself breathe. I just want to be a bit more, do a body scan when I'm in there to see how I feel. And I couldn't agree with you more about the benefits of that, you know, the physical benefits, the mental benefits, the cleansing of it. And then you add that into breath work. And I'll tell you, I wanted to tell you this funny breath story. My son passed his driving test just last week, and on his 16th birthday. And we were out doing the last minute preparations, last minute driving test. He was taking the test in my car, and I gave him a fright in the car just as we were driving towards the testing center. It wasn't my intention at all. I thought I seen a car coming. I panic. He gets a fright. He swore at me, which is a thing that we talked about afterwards and stuff. And then I was just so nervous. And so then I've had this nervous laugh and stuff. And he's kind of like, it's not funny. And then we get to the testing center, and he says, right, I better go in. And I says, close the door for a second. I says, we're going to do some breath work. And he's not as into this stuff yet because he's a teenager, he's 16, he's growing up, sees his dad doing it all the time, kind of thinks it's funny, but he's a little bit curious about it. And so I just said, just close the door for a second here. And he did, you know, obviously he's nervous as well. I says, let's just do some box breathing. Just for a second. He says, I need to get in there. I says, you're not late, my love, you're not late. So and we just sat there and we did 3 rounds of deep box breathing for however long it took us. And then eyes closed, sitting in the car, did it together. And I says, how do you feel? He says, I'm good to go. Went in and he coasted through the test, did exceptionally well. And to attach that breathing moment to something as significant as that, because you know where you were, obviously, or you know how you felt. It's a memory you've created in that day where you'll talk about it 40 years from now when you're like, when I passed my driving test, the breath work will be a part of that experience.
Exactly. I love it. I love those stories too, man. It's so changing. People be like, why would I do that? I have a younger brother, and then I said, hey, come on over. We're doing some, ice plunges here with breath work. He was like, I could just fill up my tub with water and ice. I do it in my house. Why I gotta go over there? I said, yeah, but you won't though.
Yeah, exactly.
You won't do it though. And that's what happens. Yeah. Some guys come here too. They go, man, I bought my own bucket, with water. I'm going to do the ice. I went, that's great, brother. Go ahead. Then I check them like a month or 2 later. I say, how's that going for you? And they go, I used it 1 time or twice. I like coming here with everybody, with the community. And I'm like, yeah, it's like that. Yeah. Another great powerful thing I want to tell you also, Gary, is that when you're in the ice water, and this is where really the magic happens for you to take back your power. It's not an easy thing. It's very difficult. I tell people that right away. Don't think you're just going to jump in and some guys come in all broad, like, yeah, let's do it. And they don't even last 20 seconds, But one of the amazing things that happens, and I learned that this is the activation of the reticular activating system. It relies in the back of your skull. When you're in the water, people come up with these stories saying, I never noticed how blue the sky was, or that bird that was over there. Like, I never noticed that before, like the breeze just hitting me. And here they are. They're in a tub of ice. I mean, we're talking like 40, 30 degrees. It's really freezing cold, sometimes lower. Yeah. But that activation, and then it seeps into different parts of your life. You're at the job or you're on a project. And you never noticed that opportunity that was always there. Yeah. It was always there, but it seemed to like bubble up, and you were like, yes, of course, I'm going to be that leader. I'm going to take the initiative. I'm not going to stay silent this time. I'm going to say that idea to create something. It's beautiful, man.
It absolutely is. It's like a flushing out of the things that don't serve you, and somewhat emboldening or embodying who you think you are, because yours as a community, my practice is genuinely very private. No one knows. I don't run up and down the street saying ice bath this morning, ice bath this morning,
Right,
ice bath this
right,
morning.
right,
Like,
right,
nobody cares about
right.
that. and
Exactly.
but I religiously do it because I see
Mm-hmm.
and feel both the emotional and physical benefits from it, and
Mm-hmm.
I love how it makes me feel.
Yep. Yes,
It's
the dopamine. The dopamine. That's another great book too. It's called Dopamine Nation.
right.
Yeah, look for that one too. I can't remember the author, but talks about that we live in this society that they're feeding us this dopamine, like the
Yeah,
scrolling and that's all they're doing is those little hits of dopamine,
yeah,
But what we really need to do is grab the pure dopamine, the one that lasts. So
yeah.
scientists already know that when you're in the ice, that dopamine rush, it lasts 72 hours,
Wow.
But Gary, for me, I'm on fire, man, for days. Days. I'm telling you, I walk
Yeah.
around with my hair on fire, man. I'm just like I'm just lit up, man. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I love it. I love it. I really do. And it's difficult. It is. I don't always want to do it,
Yep.
you know.
And
But
sometimes I'm the exact same. Sometimes when I get the alarm going off to say that's the 3 minutes, sometimes I am out of there like a shot.
right,
And other times this morning, for example,
Mm,
and I can't see the pattern
mm,
just yet. But this
mm,
morning the alarm went off, and I was kind of thinking, I'm going to just sit here for
mm,
another
mm,
10, 20, 30 seconds. I'm really just
mm,
enjoying it. And then I get out, and it's incredible. And think about it. Like,
mm.
think about the time, the effort, the expense to be able to do something like that naturally gives you the dopamine hit that you just explained there.
Yep. Yep. You can't
Fantastic.
it's fantastic. It's incredible. Other people are looking for it, in Netflix,
Yeah.
binge watching, video games, or they take some other substance, cannabis, and I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but it's the pure dopamine, something that we already have in our
Exactly.
body. Whoever made us, the creator, like we're sitting in a Ferrari,
Yeah.
and I tell you, Gary, for me, it's when I hear that little voice that you talk about that tells me, no, don't do it. Don't. It's too cold. You've been doing it like 4 times a week already. Don't do it. That's when I know that I have to do it. I'm doing
Yes.
it because of that voice right there. And
Yeah.
I push past it. And it's very difficult sometimes,
Yeah.
but I do it.
Well,
I'm just at that point.
exactly. And it becomes part of you.
Yep.
So that then my son and I, Leo and I, went away to British Columbia on holiday last year.
Mm,
And in the preparation for the holiday, I'm thinking, well, I can't really, I could, in theory, take my little portable bath and then find some way in the apartment to fill it up.
mm, mm,
We were in an apartment right next to a lake. So
mm.
every morning I would get up and I would go for my run, and then I would just go over and I would just go
Yes.
in the lake. No one
Yep.
else is there. And
Oh,
it's freezing cold. I get a nice swim. I didn't really conform to my 3 minutes because I was just loving it. So I'm
right.
there for 10,
Right.
12, 15 minutes. And then I come
Mm.
back into the apartment and I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
high.
Yep. High
Yeah.
as a woof, kite. I love it.
Yeah.
You speak about running also, and I run every day. I try to, and I'm up to like about 7 miles a day. And I can
Wow.
go like 7 days a week, man. I can.
Yeah.
But it's those days, man, when it's tough. Oh, I'm like,
Yeah.
I think it was like about a week and a half ago. Like it was tough that day. It just everything in my every cell in my body was like, no, don't do it, don't go. But I just keep going. I don't even talk to that voice. I don't even like, bro, you're not even in the room. Put my sneakers on. I go. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
cold, and that's another thing. Like I run all year round. So over here, it gets pretty cold in December, January.
Yeah.
Any water outside is frozen. But there
Exactly.
I am with the gloves, and my hands are freezing, my cheeks, my mouth, and I'm out there. Nobody's out there. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. So
Yeah.
it's even colder. But occasionally that thought, we call him the roommate, right? Comes in, starts messing with me. Oh, those old thoughts about those things that I did and those things, the people I hurt, and who do I think I am to be thinking? And I just for a moment I was like, wait a minute, I see you. I see you. I see you. I know who you are. Now you come for me when I'm cold and tired. I'm hungry. I want to get home. I got all these miles ahead of me. I'm like, man, please, I see you. You're obvious.
Yeah. I love that. Two key things of what you said there was think about, and genuinely think about it. Think about one time you did a cold plunge or a run and you regretted it. Think about one time in your life where afterwards you said, I wish I hadn't done that. And I think it will be quite a quick thought process because it just doesn't work like that.
Right.
If you go out and you're hurting and the run didn't work out to be what it was going to be, did you regret it afterwards, or did you say, I gave it a go? Right. I did my very, very best. So that's the one key thing. No one regrets it afterwards, And the second thing is the roommate. I love the analogy of the roommate. When I explain the voices in our heads to the clients, and the stuff that we say to ourselves, I try and kind of prompt out to a client to say, the stuff that you say to yourself, would you say that to someone else that you love? Hell no.
Right.
Exactly. But it's okay for you to say it to yourself. And you start to kind of see a bit of but then when I go a wee bit deeper and say their job, they will go about it in a way that isn't very nice. They will say, you loser, the people you hurt in the past, people are going to see beyond you. What do you think you're doing? Why don't you just disappear into the ether? Their job is to protect you.
Right.
Is to say, listen, please, we're okay where we are. It's nice and warm in here. An extra hour sleep. Sleep is good for you. Why don't you have an extra hour sleep instead of going outside into the cold and such? And once you start to realize, okay, I don't appreciate your tone. I certainly don't appreciate your language that you're using, but I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to keep me safe. You're trying to make me not push out of my boundaries in case something doesn't work out. I hear you. I see you. I can't get rid of you. You can come along with me, but you're running behind me. Don't talk to me while we're out, please. It becomes freeing. It becomes freeing when you start to say, right, okay, I get it. You're not actually here to completely destroy me. You're here in some way to serve another purpose. Just zip it and let me get on with it. Yeah.
Yeah. The book, another one comes to me too, which I often mention, is the Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. This is a great one. I do audiobooks, by the way, Gary, because, I was buying these books and then they were collecting dust,
Exactly.
With the audiobooks, I just devour them, But he speaks about this roommate. Let's say you were living with someone, Gary, and he was behind in his rent. He was talking all the time, all kinds of hours, trying to give you advice that you don't want or need. You would say, hey, look, you got to go. Get out of here. But yet we don't do anything about that roommate. We just let him, just be there, collecting space and just troubling us all the time. So we need to do something about that. Take a moment. Meditation is great. Be quiet, be still. So you could see it. That way, when you're out there, in that run, when you don't want to be, or in that freezing ice, or in that relationship, or in that job project, and they're really giving you the pointy boot, that's when you go, hey, wait a minute, I am worthy. No, I am going to do this. I am going to change this. I'm going to take that chance. Why not? What do I have to lose?
Exactly. What's the worst that's going to happen? Someone's going to say, I knew you failed. Okay, when I was moving from Scotland to Canada, I was talking to my best friend back home, and he was always kind of like, what are you doing? Like, what's the point of this? It's going to be the same shit over there that it is here, And I says, yeah, I know that everywhere I go, there I am. I understand that. I'm not running away from anything. I'm not running away from myself. I'm not trying to recreate something that's not authentic or genuine to me. I says, I just want to try it. And here's the great thing. If I go there for a month and I say, what have I done? This is not what I thought it was going to be. I should have just stuck to my lane, stuck inside my box back in Paisley. I'm going to go back. I'm already a different person because I did something that no one else did. See the amount of people that I spoke to when I was immigrating, and they said, "Oh yeah, I thought about that when I was younger, but the parents are getting older, the kids are my job, I've got itchy teeth." Like they came up with all these brilliant excuses about why not to go, and I said, "I'm going to try it, and I'm going to be a different, more rounded person as a result of this. And if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to use that as an opportunity to beat myself up. I'm going to use that as an opportunity to say, you gave it a go, man. Good for you."
Yeah. And then the worst that can happen is you just go back,
Yep.
and just go get a job and go back to the small village or something.
Yeah.
But that's so empowering, man. But you're working with leadership, and perhaps you can tell us, because we're coming close to the hour. I don't want to keep people too long, but could you tell us, what is your vision of leadership for the future? How do you see, because we live in a crazy world. Come on, there's no doubt about that. But how do you see that?
I think leadership of the future has to be more collaborative, genuinely collaborative. And this notion that the leader knows everything, I alluded to that very briefly earlier, that should be dispelled. The leader is in a position because she or he has a particular type of skill set that's appropriate for that position at that particular point in time to be able to do what needs to be done to help things move on and move forward. But when you start to say and genuinely believe, I can't do this alone. In fact, I don't want to do this alone. I want to do this with everyone else that's here. I will shield you from the storm that's coming, but I need you to be able to tell me what type of style of shield that you need and how long that shield has to be up for you to be able to do what needs to be done. And that genuine collaborative nature to say, and as I say, you need to believe it, because if you just say it, that's one small step in the right direction. But if you don't lean into it and value people for what they're doing and genuinely collaborate and say, listen, I have an issue. Can you come and can I talk and walk you through this, what I'm dealing with here, and see what your lens tells you, what that looks like. And then all of a sudden, everyone is raising the bar each and every day. And there's no glass ceiling for anyone, and there's hopefully no limitations put on anyone to say, I couldn't possibly ever be in that position. It's just an opportunity to say there are different ways to do it, and you're not going to do it alone. And if you start to embrace that, build your tribe and get that tribe to being, the community that you want it to be, that's the only way you're going to get things done in the future. There's just too much to know these days.
I love it. I love it. I love that. Do you know the Venus Project?
Yes.
Jack Fresco. Yeah. The one thing I really loved about him is that he said, I don't have all the answers, but we better do something. I love that, because he was open. Like, he's like, I'm not telling you that this is the way. I'm just saying this is one of the ways that we can do things. We can't keep doing those things. So it reminded me of that collaborative effort where we're helping to feed one another, and we're helping to lead one another, and helping to work things out.
Because you're having different types of conversations then. You're saying, guess what I learned on the weekend? And someone's saying, I had a similar experience, but let me tell you about my journey. And then all of a sudden you have this collective wisdom that you didn't have before. And you're tapping into all this genius that's around you that we know that it's around, but other people don't. And then all of a sudden this building a superpower, of people together. And it's incredible what the opportunities are.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. I did want to say that we're having the Purple Sage Festival. It's happening on June 28th. There's even an option for people to camp out. So this is all about health and wellness, and there's live music, and there's, different vendors and all type of thing. And it's great. We're just pulling community together, and we want to be able to help people with that ticket. So if you could just tell me, if you've lasted this long on the podcast, if you could tell me the code word Gary Gillan, then we'll save you 10% on that. In fact, just GG. That's it. Just GG. You can tell me. Yeah.
I love it.
Yep, we'll help you out with 10% off of that ticket, and all kinds of goodies come with that too, man. So, Gary, where can people find you if they're looking for you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, just my name, Gary Gillan, or on my website, garygillan.com. And I'm always open to a conversation with anyone at any time.
Of course. And you have a website. You have the website. You also have the podcast as well.
I do. Yeah. All that information is on the website. I have a podcast called The Best You. And it's all about being the best you. Interesting guests. My friend Omar was a wonderful guest on that not so long ago, and it's interesting conversations with interesting people about interesting things, and I just love it.
I love it. Me too. I'm tapping in as much as I can, man. Thank you so much for providing and doing what you do, brother. We'll leave all that information in the show notes, and I look forward to speaking with you again, brother.
Definitely. Okay. My pleasure. Thanks a million.
Peace and love. Let's do it again soon, okay?